Well, hello everybody. My name's Ezra Levant. It's April 20th, and you're watching our daily live stream show called Battleground. It's what Google calls a super chat, as you can see to the right of your screen there. It's a live streaming comment section. That's the chat part. The super chat comes in when you chip in a few bucks to make your comments stand out in a bright highlighted color, and it actually gets appended to the top of that little chat window, and I watch out of the corner of my eye and I look out for those ones and I make sure to read them out loud. And if I miss them in the moment, our team today, we got a tag team, a duo in the control booth. Mike is joining Justin. They'll send me an email in case I miss any, so I'll be sure to get through them all. The reason we do these live stream super chats every day is, first of all, they're fun to do. I find them very fun. It's like the high-tech way of doing an old call-in radio show, which I used to do back in the day. I always loved it. Second of all, as you may know, YouTube lets us have a portion of the proceeds, 70%, which frankly I think a 30% commission to them is outrageous, but they did build the whole platform, so beggars can't be choosers. So when you chip in for a super chat, know that some of that dough comes to us here at Rebel News, and I thank you for that. There's a few hundred people on the live stream now. Feel free to click the like button, the share button, that little bell notification button, ring the bell as they say. What I do on these live streams is I go through little odds and ends in the news that I don't have time to cover in my produced nightly show every day at 8 p.m. I do a produced show, sort of like I don't know, I guess an analogy would be Tucker Carlson's monologue, and then he has a guest. We do that at 8 p.m. too. That's just for paywall subscribers. It's $8 a month, which I don't think is too heavy. And by the way, if you're giving $8 and it's a super chat, why don't you go sign up and be a premium subscriber? You get, this is for free obviously, and you get the whole paywall show at night too, which I recommend, if I may say so. Anyways, there's so many things out there, I don't even know where to start. I think, I don't know if you saw my monologue on Friday, that we're moving from one phase to the next in this pandemic. Phase one was willful blindness, where people said, nah, it's not a real thing. We don't need to enforce borders. Keep flying in from China, no problem. Like it was, and then you had leaders from the World Health Organization say you don't even need masks. So I call that phase one, willful blindness, denial, and frankly, in some cases, I'd call that outright pro-China propaganda. Phase two, which seemed to turn on a dime, was panic. Oh my God, we have to lock everyone in house arrest because we didn't lock the door at the border. Now we've got to lock the door on your house instead of 1,000 travelers a week from China. We're going to inconvenience tens of millions of people every day. So that was phase two, extreme overreaction, panic, some of which I can say is justified, because how do we know what the real death toll was in China? Can you put the 21 million cell phone page back up there, Justin or Mike? China lies, as all dictatorships do. They lie because they want to look stronger than they are. They want to look perfect, because if a dictator ever admitted that he was fallible, people would say, oh, can we have a better alternative? So you're not divine, right? So dictatorships always lie. We saw that heavily about 35 years ago with the Chernobyl disaster. So when China said, hey, look at this. China's mobile carriers lose 21 million users as virus bites. Now, the thesis behind this story in Bloomberg a few weeks ago was that, oh, they're poor now, the economy's hurting now, so suddenly 21 million cell phone users in China don't need their phones anymore. Yeah, that's one explanation. Another is that they died, and so they don't need their cell phone anymore. Or maybe it's a combination of the two, or maybe there's another explanation altogether. But my point is, when China lied about the death count in Wuhan, in fact, recently they really bumped up the number 50%, but it's probably 5,000% higher. when we don't know how bad it was, should we be ultra prepared, super prepared because the Chinese communists are hiding the truth from us? I can understand that thinking. There was a while we were showing a lot of videos from Harry Chen. In fact, I might ask you to go to that Twitter account. I follow a lot of Chinese dissident Twitter accounts because I don't trust a word the media party in North America says. All they care about is being anti-Trump no matter what. So if whoever is Trump's adversary at the moment, they cheer for, whether that's the virus or China. CBC is terrible that way. Obviously, I don't trust Chinese state propaganda, although I watch it, because I can sort of detect what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, and then I can sort of work my way backwards and say, oh, they must be nervous about this. They must be nervous about that. They certainly are talking a lot about that. That's a sore spot for them. But mostly, I go to a handful of Chinese sites that are ethnic Chinese. Some of them are even from mainland China. And because there's so many cell phones in China, and the social media sites there like WeChat are very heavily regulated, but they still manage, these video clips still manage to get out. And it's just amazing to see. Let's just go to Harry Chen's. So here's one fella I follow, and he keeps getting kicked off of Twitter. So you can see he comes up with a new Twitter handle almost every week. Here he's going by Harry Chen PhD 1. He's had 3 different Twitter names in the month I've been following him. Let's scroll down a little bit. I don't need that one. That one's a little bit obscure. What does this one say? Police will kindly check your reading materials to make sure it's safe. Disinformation is dangerous. Thankfully, China is here to save the world. So can you click on those pictures there? Bookshop. So they're checking, you can see the cops on the left, they're checking the books in the bookshop. Can you go back to the first bookshop? It's funny, if I can tell a story, I remember the very first day I landed in China about a dozen years ago. The very first day I was with the missus, and I'd never been to China before, obviously, and there was so much to see and so much to do, but in my mind, the most important thing I wanted to do in the entire trip, first of all, I was surprised they let me off the airplane, because on the visa application, they said, what's your profession? And I put journalist, because at the time I was the boss of the Western Standard magazine. So, oh boy, they were nervous about that. I got phone calls. I didn't know if I was going to get the visa. But they did approve me to get on the plane. So I flew, and we landed in Beijing. And, let me just tell this little anecdote, if I may. So we land, and I look out the window. I say, oh, is it a blizzard? Is it like a snowstorm? It's summertime. How can there be a blizzard in Beijing? Nah, mate, that's not a blizzard. That's smog. I thought we were landing in a storm, like a blizzard. That's how smoggy it was. Unbelievable. I can't imagine it's any better now. Anyways, so we get into China, and I just think to myself, I want to test 2 things. I want to see what's for sale in a bookstore, and I want to see what's blocked or not on the internet. I'll tell the stories in reverse order. So there's all these little internet cafes, and there's guys with like a bench outside a house, like a wire going back to that, a little bench, and for like 25 cents, they'll let you surf for 15 minutes on their website. So I sit down, now this was 12 years ago, and I start typing in sites, what is blocked and what's not. Wall Street Journal, I recall, was blocked. I think my own website at the time, the Western Standard, was blocked. It was very fascinating to me to see what was or wasn't blocked. And I only stopped when the missus said, Ezra, you're going to get this guy in trouble. This little internet guy who's making like 25 cents an hour charging people to use. And I thought, maybe she's right. So I stopped typing in bad words in the internet cafe. And then I went to a bookstore, not unlike the one there. That we just put that back up just for a second. I mean, there are a fair number of bookstores in China. Now, exactly like that. And the Chinese internet was fairly developed when I was there, even a dozen years ago. In fact, I think in many ways, it's ahead of our internet now. Everyone is they sort of leaped over the middle stage. They went from having nothing to having ubiquitous cell phones with fast broadband and massive e-commerce. It's like they skipped the 20th century, went straight from the 19th century to the 21st century. So I went into a bookstore. That looks like a rather small bookshop, although it's written in both English and Chinese. Isn't that interesting? I went into a fairly large bookstore in Beijing, and they had a computer sort of, you could type in book. First of all, I should tell you that at least when I was there, and it's been a while since I've been there, all the books that they were pushing, all the books in the glass window at the front were basically how to get rich quick, how to get rich off real estate, how to get rich off the stock market. It was like absolutely poor peasants who a few years earlier had been stooped over in a rice paddy, now all had dollars in their eyes, and they thought, well, I can be a millionaire too. And of course, many of them did become millionaires. The whole country has had an economic boom. But they all had that get rich quick scheme feeling to them. Which frankly is the way of the sort of crooked capitalism, the crony capitalism in China, because it's true, unlike our regulated, fairly transparent stock market, everything's rigged and gamed in China. It's all about who you know. Are you with the Communist Party? If so, you have some protection. It was interesting to me that the books that were really prominent were these sort of pyramid schemes, stock market pump and dump the stock kind of thing. But I have to say, one after another, I typed in books that I thought would be controversial, and indeed I could find them in the library. I typed in, what would you type in? I still remember the names of the books I typed in. I was sort of nervous and excited at the same time. I had just landed in Beijing. I was maybe only there for a day now. I was a little surprised they let me off the plane. I said to the missus, they might well just turn us back on the aircraft, because they gave me such a rigmarole when I put journalist on my visa. I thought, they're going to send us back. Well, we got into China, they didn't stop us at all. So I thought, okay, well, let me go to this bookstore. I went to this internet stand. Actually, I was probably in Shanghai. I did that now that I recall. But I went to this big bookstore. What would be the first book you would type in? You know what I typed into their sort of catalog system? George Orwell's 1984. And absolutely it was there. And I checked, and I could find it. Okay, what was the next book I typed in? Also by Orwell, Animal Farm. All animals are equal. Some animals are more equal than others. You know that incredible book? It was there in the catalog and in the bookstore physically. And then I started thinking, well, what other books might they not want people to read? And I remember typing in On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. It was there. The Federalist Papers, an American constitutional corpus, the debates of the Founding Fathers. It was there. And I thought, oh my goodness. Maybe I was wrong. Now, there were websites that were banned, I mentioned, for sure. But I was racking my brain trying to come up with things that would not be in this bookstore. Now, I have to say, this bookstore was in Beijing. These books were in the English language. So that perhaps is some sort of limitation on who could have them. But this was all out in the open. This wasn't me buying, psst, you want a copy of this? But what I kept typing in words and names, and the missus sure wanted to go and do touristy things instead of my weird, no, we just flew to China. Let me go to a bookstore and type things in their catalog. I admit it was a strange way to be a tourist, but I had never been to China before. I certainly was not as vocal a critic of China then as I am now. And I would never go to China now. I mean, they take Canadians hostage all the time. And by all the time, I mean right now. They took the two Michael Kovrig and Michael Spey were hostage. They've been hostages for almost a year and a half. I absolutely would not go to China, and I would recommend no Canadian citizen goes to China. And I would even recommend against any ethnic Chinese who's Chinese and Canadian from going back if you've expressed in any way sympathies for democracy, free. It's just that regime is, and they've been cracking down on Hong Kong in the last few days. We'll talk about that in a moment. So what did I find before the missus said, okay, can we do the tourism? You know what books were censored? You know what books were blocked? Anything, I could find two categories. One was anything about religion in certain ways. Anything Falun Gong, absolutely banned. Falun Gong is a Chinese, slightly New Age feeling, slightly Tai Chi feeling. I don't know if religion is the right word, but I'm going to call it a religion. Anything about the Falun Gong, absolutely banned. Anything critical of the Chinese government or Mao was very hard to find. I think they had a phrase, Mao was 70% right, or some phrase like that. In fact, and this was a dozen years ago, so it might be different now, you still saw Mao's face everywhere in China, and certainly on the currency. The only face more ubiquitous than Mao Zedong, and again, this is a dozen years ago, and I'm sure a lot of my viewers have been to China since then, and they can give me an update, but you know what face was more frequent on the streets of China, and I went to about 10 cities, than Mao? You're not going to guess. Any guesses, Justin or Mike? Colonel Sanders. There were so many KFCs in China back then. The Colonel was everywhere. I saw more KFCs and Colonel Sanders than I saw Mao Zedong. Anyways, I'm sure that all of my anecdotes are outdated now, except for this. Anything that would challenge the Communist Party, Mao Zedong, anything that would challenge ultimate moral loyalty to the Communist Party, anything religious, that was banned. You want to read George Orwell? Go ahead. You want to read Animal Farm? Go ahead. You want to read the Federalist Papers on liberty? Yeah, knock yourself out. But you cannot operationalize that. You cannot make that particular and practical. You cannot doubt the moral, ideological, and supremacy of the Communist Party of China. That's what I found when I went to the bookstore and the on-the-street internet guy. And then after that, I pretty much was a normal tourist for the next month. I was there for almost a month, I think. Except for one thing. There were certain places we went where we hired a tour guide and translator for the day. Obviously very, very cheap. And there were certain places we went, we were the only Westerners, and people would walk up to us to practice their English. When I was in Xinjiang, which is the Uyghur Muslim province, it's the western province. Xinjiang means new frontier, if I'm not mistaken. It was very interesting to me. You could tell it was different. It was ethnically different than the Han Chinese. I saw a lot of Chinese people with blue eyes, which is frankly a shocking thing to see. But they weren't quite Chinese looking. They were Turkmen, if I'm not mistaken. By the way, a very moderate, peaceful, placid Islam. I've been to some Muslim places, including to Iraq. I have to say, in fact, I said this to the missus at the time, that the Muslim province of China, Xinjiang, was actually my favorite. It was the most relaxed. I don't eat pork, so I found that very easy to, obviously my Chinese was terrible, but it was no problem. They just get ready to eat a lot of lamb. I found Urumqi and Tulufan, the cities I visited in Xinjiang, very pleasant. And we just thought, well, let's get as far away from, we actually went to Urumqi to get as far away from the factory smoke in Beijing, Shanghai, and the other big cities. We had hit all these huge cities, and after you get a cough. There were these brand new sparkling hotels that put up. I remember there was a Shangri-La hotel in Chengdu, which is the Panda Bear city. And I thought, oh, a brand new, gorgeous, luxury hotel, but it's super cheap. Literally, it was just open that week, so it was fairly empty. Oh, let's stay in this luxury hotel. It's only $50 or whatever. And we stayed right near the top, and I thought it's going to be amazing. No, there's no such thing as a view. You can be on like the 30th story of a hotel. And what's the point? Because visibility is only a couple hundred yards because of the smog. And you're driving around on these superhighways and you're driving by the rice paddies. And the concept of zoning, I mean, there's some parts of China that are obviously done with a master plan, but you would have a residential skyrise, and then you would have like a factory with a tall belching smokestack, and then you would have like an office. It's just all mixed up together. And the different colors of smoke. I mean, we're used to smoke that's, you know, white or gray or black. We just generally don't even see smoke emitting from our smokestacks in the West. But in China, you saw smoke of every color. Obviously black, gray, and white, but yellow smoke. You ever seen yellow smoke? You ever seen red smoke before? I mean red, I don't mean, you know, it was, and so frankly, we were driven by the pollution. You know, you're there for a couple of days, oh, that's sort of cool. After a couple of weeks, you think, can I find any place in this country that's not so polluted? So we looked at a map and said, let's go to Xinjiang. Far away, so there's a long flight. There's a ton of airlines in China, as you know. And they're all online. It was very easy for us to, so we went to this far west province, this Muslim province, to get away from the smoke, but it was just as smoky there. Anyway, that's my little China anecdote. Thank you for letting me tell you that. And we're going to do some super chats now. I just wanted to get that little kibitz to you about what China's like, and then we're going to get back. I saw that bookshop. So that's a 20-minute travel log, because I saw the word bookshop. Put Harry Chen's tweet up one more time. Because when I was there a dozen years ago, I tell you that I went into a bookshop just like that, and I looked for all the, quote, bad books I could, and no one cared. And here we are 12 years later, and you have cops inspecting the book. Forgive me for telling my anecdotes. It just brought back the memory of my first day in Beijing when I was going to find contraband. It was just a mission I had for some reason. And China is regressing. That's my whole point. I thank you for letting me tell you all my stories. But China is regressing from when I was there. That's the lesson of Harry Chen's tweet, don't you think? Okay, so let's take a look at the super chats here. Did you send them by email? And what email did you send them from? There we go. Troy SCA, $10, thank you. Hope you and the staff had a good weekend. Should be an interesting week with government sitting in House of Commons today. Going to be a heck of a busy week news-wise. I think you're right. Justin Trudeau certainly did his best not to attend Parliament. He resisted, and the CBC, oh my God, they wanted to stop Parliament from happening. It was deeply embarrassing to the both of them. I remember a few weeks ago when there were news stories, Hungary abolishes Parliament, Hungary, bad Hungary. No, Hungary's Parliament's been meeting. Most parliaments around the world have been meeting. They have some social distancing or whatever. Only Justin Trudeau tried to seize the opportunity of the pandemic to suspend Parliament, to rule by fiat. He's an authoritarian at root. John Reed CA, 279, please cover Parliament's key questions on the $8 show. I will definitely take a look at those, thank you. I have a scoop tonight on the $8 show. I have a scoop, so I'm going to stay on my scoop, but maybe we'll have a guest about Parliament. Scooby-Doo-Doo on your head, $5, Taipei Sam, 75 NT. I'm not sure what NT stands for. Maybe that's a Taiwanese currency. Western Canada Select oil is now literally worthless. How would you advise Premier Kennedy to navigate through the next 2 years? What a terrible situation. As you know, oil prices around the world are low because of overproduction. Supply and demand, that's how it works. But I don't know, without checking, I'm gonna guess the world price for West Texas Intermediate or North Sea Brent, these are different kinds of oil, around $20, I'm gonna guess without checking. But because Alberta oil is landlocked, because the environmental extremists have, and I include Justin Trudeau in that, have cut off the pipelines, the oil can't move, so the supply vastly exceeds the demand, there's a bottleneck, and so it's literally selling for a negative amount. as in you have to pay people to take it from you. It's heartbreaking. I think that the Keystone XL pipeline, that's the American pipeline, is the best hope for that. I really don't know what, like you have a industry-wide problem of low prices, which is good for everyone else, right? It's good for consumers. But for the oil patch, it's devastating. But to basically say your oil is worthless because there's so much of it you can't get it out, that is a political problem that turned into an economic problem. Bruce Gilver, $20. Thank you very much. Dragon JOC, $5. Thanks. Could it be that the 21 million had their access to networks revoked as part of the cover-up? That number is really high and doesn't feel right. Yeah, that was a point made the other day that perhaps that's social credit. Because, of course, if your social credit score, your political tracking score, like a credit bureau here, but a political credit bureau over there, you needed to get internet, you needed to buy plane tickets, airline tickets, get a good apartment. That could well be it. So maybe it's either 21 people who have passed away or 21 people who are misbehaving in China. Taipei Sam, 75 NT. Is NT the Taiwanese currency? What's the name of it? The new Taiwan dollar. Thank you. I've been to Taiwan too, and I very much, the Taiwan new dollar. Thank you, Mike. I very much enjoyed my trip to Taiwan, and in fact, I tried to get our Kian Bexty to Taiwan to report on the ground about how they're handling the virus, much better than any other country in the world, but their quarantine rules are so strict. The embassy said, yes, we like you, we know your journalism, but we would still require you, even if you took a test, a blood test right before, we would still require you to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. They were very, very adamant on that, which I admire. So we'll have to get back to Taiwan when the quarantine's lifted. Taipei Sam says, rebels should come to Taipei. Lots of Hong Kong dissidents hanging out here, including the bookseller that was disappeared from Hong Kong a few years ago. Well, thank you. And in fact, the embassy said, we'd love to have you over in Taiwan, but not till the quarantine's lifted. So in fact, that was our early, about a month ago, I said, Kian, go to Taiwan. Kian went to Hong Kong for us. I said, go to Taiwan. But they said, no foreigners allowed without a 14-day quarantine. Andy, £5, phase 1 denial, phase 2 panic and lockdown, phase 3 blame Canada, phase 4 wait for them to apologize, and phase 5 profit. Yeah, I don't think I finished my train of thought there. Phase 1 was denial, phase 2 was panic, phase 3, some phase of total lockdown, phase 3 is, okay, people saying, okay, thank God, it wasn't as deadly as we had feared. Can we get back to life now? Can we start schools now? Can you find my tweet from a few days ago where, I don't think I talked about it on Friday, where I look at the mortality rates in Quebec. I don't know if you can find that. Maybe go to my Twitter feed and click media. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet. So this data is a couple days old, but it doesn't matter because it's the proportions here I want to show you. So Quebec, this is it, thank you. Let me read the tweet. So this is a couple days ago, but I can assure you that other than slightly scaled up, this trend remains. Out of 16,798 cases in Quebec, there have been a total of 14 people under age 60 who have died. Literally nobody under age 30. And then I say, how about we focus on seniors' homes where 70% of deaths occur and let the rest of us go back to work and school. Now, can you click on that image so we zoom in just a tiny bit? So look at this. So you got 8.5 million Quebecers. Let's call it 17,000 cases. So as you can see, what's the math on that there? 95% of the cases do not require hospitalization. Right? So you got 17,000 cases. 1,700 would be 10%. So half of 1,700, almost precisely 5% are hospitalized, which sounds pretty heavy duty. Of those, so now the number who in ICU, 207, and that's total. Those people could be out already. So 8.5 million Quebecers, 17,000 cases, 200 ICUs, 700 deaths, nothing to sneeze at. Obviously every death a tragedy. But look at the age group. No deaths 30 and so look at the left, it says 20 to 29, 10 to 19. So those first 3 age cohorts there, no deaths, thank God. And then age 30 to 39, 3 deaths. 1 death is too many, but we're all going to die. But in terms of a pandemic and a panic, and then add in the 2 next cohorts, 40 to 49, 4 people, 50 to 59. So that's not even young anymore. That's well into middle age. I mean, you know, you've heard the phrase freedom 55. How old is a senior citizen? Traditionally, I would say 65. Is that golden years? But, you know, is it 60? My point is, under 60 years old, a grand total of 14 people have passed away. And again, I don't make light of it, but I'm talking about the proportion, whereas look at the next chunk there, 60 to 69. Okay, now it's getting double to 54, but still not even out of a population of 8.5 million. But then when you're 70 and up, and then 80 and up, and then 90 and up. I mean, what percentage of your population is over 90 to begin with? Well, 27% of the deaths are from that population. I'm going to guess without checking that the percentage of the population in Quebec that's literally aged 90 and up, I'm going to guess that's only a couple percent. And the reason I show you this chart is to say the most obvious thing. Quarantine sick people don't quarantine healthy people. If you have $100 of resources, don't spend it equally. Put 90% of it on the seniors. If you're going to give care and restrictions and attention, why not put it to where the problem is? The problem is not young, healthy people. It's not even guys like me. I'm 48. I'm fat, so that makes me an elevated risk. But even that, this disease, at least in Quebec, is for 70, 80, and 90-year-olds. Now, part of that is because of the clusters of the deaths in these seniors' homes. So I think it's not even just that the virus targets seniors. I think it's that bad practices in some of these seniors' homes has caused that to happen. All right. Let me catch up on some of the super chats here. An incredible $100 gift from TrueBD44. Rebel News is a beacon of hope in a sea of treachery. I'm a U.S. citizen and wish we had a Rebel News down here. Ezra and his team were able to put things together so well. My kids and I watch his artistry as much as possible. Thank you. Well, that is so nice of you to say. Well, I've just been rambling and telling personal anecdotes and travel logs for a while, so I haven't got into, actually, I don't even think I've shown a single clip today, and that's what I meant to do. I guess I just have things on my mind. But thank you, TrueBD44. We've had a lot of great videos from Sheila, Kean, and David. And I might show 1 or 2 if I can keep my own chatter short. Graham, $20. I'm working from home in a different part of the province from my family. I have every intention of seeing them by the summer. Should I be concerned that intercity car travel restrictions might be in the future? Well, there you go. So phase 1, denial. Phase 2, panic and overreaction. Phase 3, oh, thank God, we dodged the bullet. It wasn't quite that bad. I'm not saying it's good to have nearly 2,000 deaths in the country, although I think that the regular flu has killed more souls than this Wuhan virus. So I'm not downplaying it, but it's not the panicky model numbers that we saw before. So now, there's the fight. Do we get back to work, normal work? Can we earn a living? Can we see our family and friends? Can we get back with normalcy? Because the 2 million Canadians have been thrown out of work. Can they go back to working in a restaurant? I'm not saying with no rules. I mean, I'm fine with a rule that says if you go to a grocery store, wear a mask. And by the way, why doesn't the grocery store have a little mask jar at the front, charge $1 a mask or whatever? Because it's still hard for some people to find masks. You can't deny someone the right to eat because they don't have a mask. Maybe we can get some masks. Trudeau said he was going to spend $2 billion on masks. Where are they, by the way? Maybe we can make masks. You saw that video. Can we put it up as B-roll, that video from Philadelphia the other day, where a guy was riding public transit. Cops get on the bus. They were not wearing masks. And they order a guy off the bus because he wasn't wearing a mask. Well, they didn't have masks. And they hauled him out, and they had a scene, and they threw his phone on the ground. and they were shouting, and they were physical with him. How about just give him a mask? I mean, he paid the $1.50 or $2 for the bus ride. I'm sure he could afford 50 cents more for a mask. He just didn't have one. Can you find a mask? A friend of mine gave me some masks. He gave me 50 masks. I divided them up amongst the staff here. So I have enough masks, and I'm not going out and about that much anyways. But they're a little bit hard to find. I saw masks at a corner store for about $2 each. That felt like gouging, but you need a mask, you need a mask. Do we have that Philadelphia clip? I just want to show that, because that really bugged me. Anyways, let me know if you guys want a taser. Yeah.
What the fuck am I holding on to? Yo, you gonna feel this, man. Look what the fuck y'all calling me, dumbass. Get the fuck off. Get out. Get the fuck off my fucking leg. Wait. Take me if you fucking want. Where the fuck? Close this door, man. Fucking pussy ass.
Okay, so they were wearing masks. Why didn't they give them a mask? Why they got to go all gropey, physical, shout, haul them out? What? I think that we're in a new phase now, where people want to say, look, I'm not at risk, can I go back to my life? If you're riding public transit, maybe it's for convenience, maybe you're poor. Maybe you can't find a mask. So you can't find a mask, you can't go to work. Can't find a mask, you can't go to a grocery store, you can't eat. You know, we've been in lockdown for more than a month. Where's the masks? Which brings me to a new emphasis of Rebel News. I think that we were ahead of the curve in reporting on the virus itself. Reporting, can we get some B-roll of David going to the airport? We sent, when the Trudeau Liberals started lying about how they were screening the airport, we sent David Menzies almost every day to show there was no screening, there was no masks, there was no temperature taking, there was nothing. We were way ahead of the curve on that. If you want to grab some Roxham Road B-roll, feel free. We sent Kian, David, and a freelancer, Ryan Katsu-Rivera, to the Roxham Road border crossing to show that there was no fence there at all. So we were ahead of the curve on all that stuff. But now that we're in a new phase, I sense a new problem. The new problem is the public health bullies who have enjoyed this raw power they've had over all of us. And we all sort of consented to that because we thought, oh my God, are we all going to die? Is it going to be millions of deaths? There was a moment where we all sort of held our breath. But you can't hold your breath forever. And after a while, when we realized that the models were not just 10 times overblown, but maybe 100 times overblown, and then we started to learn more about it, like, you know what? There's some people who are genuinely low risk. I can see it on the street today. I was driving into work today. More cars on the street. I think I saw video out of Florida. They're opening up beaches again. LA, the freeways, people are just going out and about. Central Park, people going to Central Park in New York. People aren't panicking anymore. Those emergency hospital ships that Trump put off LA and California just weren't used. Those emergency hospitals that Trump built in various convention centers, they just weren't used. Okay, good. So people want to go back with their lives, especially people who need to work for a living, and people who, unlike the fancy celebrities we see on Twitter and Instagram, don't have massive mansions where hanging out under self-isolation is pretty fun because, you know, I got a jacuzzi, I got a tennis club, I got a private forest in my backyard, I have a cook or whatever. So there was a certain class that thought it was really fun this quarantine. It was like a sleepover party. We were all working from home in our pajamas, and we were all chatting with each other, and it's a fun little change of pace. And then there was the priestly class, which said, we're now in control. No one elected us. In Canada, that would be Theresa Tam. In the States, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx. They had their time in the limelight. They would make orders, and massive things would happen by fiat. Well, their time is now fading, and let's say they did a great job. Let's say that their overzealous models were the best they could do given the information they had. And who am I to second guess that? But now that we see that the facts have caught up with the theory, it's time to change the theory. You know, if you have a theory, a hypothesis, the scientific method is you test the hypothesis in an experiment and you alter your theory. So the hypothesis was we're going to have this crazy curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. Well, thank God we ran the experiment and it didn't happen. Okay, good. So let's change the theory. But no. You give a politician, a bureaucrat, or a police force power, and they don't want to give it up lightly. I'm going to jump into a whole bunch of viz. We'll get the viz quickly. Let's start with the drones. Let's start with the police drones. Take a look at this. We're going to get the clip ready.
Mayors need to be creative. We have to figure out a way to get to people that police cars can't get to.
Elizabeth City Police shot this video for us to show us how drones work. The drones make it easier for police to see into certain areas where access by patrol cars is more difficult. That includes tight spaces between buildings, behind schools, and in backyards. Failure to comply could lead to a summons or a $1,000 fine. You think the drones watching over people is a good idea or a bad idea?
I think at this point, it's worth a try.
It's just an invasion of your privacy.
The mayor's heard it all.
My answer to those people are, if these drones save one life, it is clearly worth the activity and the information that the drones are sending.
The drones donated by...
Those drones are made in China, as all drones are. You know, I bought a little toy drone for my kid, and it came with an app for my phone, which I have since deleted, because every drone on the market that I'm aware of, including the big drone maker DJI, it's China. And their servers are in China, and your data goes through China. Those drones, it's outrageous enough what that cop is saying. I'm going to spy on you. Because if I save one life, and I don't know how he's saving a life with a drone, then it's worth spying on a total surveillance state, really? It's not really how it works. But what's the big laugh is, and I probably cut the clip off too soon, is that those drones were donated by China. Gee, wow. I deleted TikTok and I deleted the drone app off my phone because there were things happening in my... I couldn't explain. I was paranoid. I don't want to get paranoid. I'm just going to delete the Chinese apps off my phone. And I haven't had problems since. That's an anecdote. I don't know if it's true. I had strange things happening with my computers and phones that I didn't quite understand. By the way, we're going to talk a little bit about the shooting in Nova Scotia. In fact, why don't we do that right now? Can we pull up a headline? Terrible, terrible, strange, and shocking and heartbreaking news out of Nova Scotia. And there was sort of it felt like a lockdown on the facts about it, like it was a cone of silence around it for quite a while. The last I heard, there were 16 people murdered. Yeah, scroll past this video. 17 dead, including one RCMP officer. I'm not going to count the murderer as amongst the dead because it was a horrific. So there were 16 innocent people, including this cop here who was killed. Very bizarre facts, including that, okay, thanks, that the murderer had a hobby of collecting police cars, actual police cars, collecting actual police uniforms, had lots of police memorabilia in his home, but also had testy interactions with police, arguments. He ran a denture shop in Nova Scotia. A cop parked in his parking lot once without permission, so he chained it shut. The cop said, we're going to bring bolt cutters, and like it was just a real weird argument. So he had an obsession with cops, and then it sounds like in the end, he dressed up as a cop and went out in a cop car, a fake one that he had bought, and he went on a murder spree that lasted hours and hours and hours and hours. And it's just, I've never heard of anything like that before. And I don't know what much more to say. I mean, obviously it's a horrific crime. Don't have any information about the killer other than what I've just told you. My understanding is that he, obviously he's dead, he won't be put on trial. We won't be able to learn that way what he was thinking. Perhaps he had some message. I don't know what much more to say other than it's a tragedy and terrible news, because I don't quite see a political commentary angle on it. I hope it's not politicized, but it surely will be by gun control advocates, although what he did was obviously against the law. So a mere law wouldn't stop, another piece of paper wouldn't stop a criminal. In this case, how would you even stop someone who presents as a cop? Your guard would be down. You'd say, oh good, the cop's here to save me. Just diabolical. Truby, sorry, I read that one. Is there another super chat? There we go. Proud Boys Calgary, $7. Best author I've found to understand the current Chinese mentality is Machiavelli. Everyone will try to undercut you anyway, so you do it first. Yeah, it's, of course, in China they have Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Some more super chats. Psychic Killer, $20. Political terrorism is thriving in Canada. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but I'm going to talk some more about police bullying. Paul Schofield, $5. Hi Ezra. Any chance that the Chinese smog you encountered years ago was the Chinese Communist Party conducting a dry run for blowing smoke up the hind end of the West? No, it was just so ubiquitous, and there were so many cars in China, obviously, but there were even more tiny little, cheap little putt-putt sort of motorcycles that, I don't know enough about motors, but it was just like a crappy engine that ran a crappy, dirty fuel, and these cities just smelled like this, like low-grade, improperly combusted fuel. It was awful. It was awful, and I don't normally comment or care about things like that, but it was, like I say, when I landed, it felt like it was a snowstorm. No, it was 30 degrees Celsius out. That wasn't a snowstorm. Michael Nichols, $2.79. Ezra, thank you for being a true alternative. Well, that's nice of you to say. Damon the Dam, it's $5. Would you consider an office mascot, like a basset hound? If you mean like a real dog, we had a real dog here the other day. It was a lot of fun, but no one was paying attention. The dog had to go out and made a bit of a mess. We did have a dog. We've had dogs here in the past, and when I worked at Sun News, Alex Pearson had a dog, very well-behaved dog, who would sit very quietly at Alex's feet during the show and wouldn't make a sound. I got no beef with dogs being in the studio if someone's attending to them. We had the dog here the other day and no one did, and it was a bit of a mess. Bob, $14. Global reporting about a 19-year-old getting serious case of COVID. Headline doesn't mention he also had mono at the same time. Mono is really seriously, probably worse than COVID. Well, that's the thing. A chart we showed you the other day from New York was that the vast majority of people who died had a pre-existing or underlying condition. Now, that doesn't mean that shouldn't count in some way, because if you're on the edge of health and the virus pushes you over, it was the proximate acute cause that finally pushed you over. And that's, like I say, we should discriminate, we should distinguish between people who are at risk, underlying conditions, people over age 70, And people are at very low risk, no underlying conditions under age 40, which, by the way, includes most school children. Koikamang, 20 bucks. Hi, Ezra, great work. Do you still have an app? No, we don't have an app right now because we changed our IT architecture very significantly a few months ago. We may get an app again, but right now our website is pretty phone friendly, I think. In fact, our web traffic is up, I'd say, by double a few months ago, so that tells me it's working, but we don't have the app, and I know that means that our paywall show, there's a little bit of functionality missing there. I don't know if we're on Roku, but we'll get there. I appreciate your patience. Breathing Sunshine, 10 bucks. Why are you buying the RCMP narrative on the shooting? Do you really trust the government these days? It was the RCMP killing everyone. Investigating. Well, you can't make a statement like that based on pure speculation. I've looked at a variety of news sources, including some historical news involving the killer. He was a private citizen, but he had some interactions with the media and even with police before, as I just mentioned about his denture clinic. I'm looking forward to learning more about it. I do not want to indulge in baseless speculation. I'm extremely curious, and I hope that the police will be transparent and will disclose the facts. Jean McLeod, saw that video where your dad looked at Cuomo's chest x-rays. I am no expert by no means, but seeing other COVID-19 x-rays, Cuomo's looked clear as day. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm no expert either, but I knew that I had an expert in the family, my own dad, and he took it very seriously. I mean, I sent him that video, and he watched it several times and, over-answered the question a little bit, but that's why he was a good doctor. Yeah, I think there was a lot of baloney there. Yeah, I mean, look, to me that looks clear, but look, I'm not a doctor. I can see some hazy stuff on the right and the left there. I don't know what that is. My dad, being a radiologist, explained that is a normal chest. That's what a normal chest looks like, lungs. That's what they look like. I think that he's just a ham who thought I know the way to make myself the center of the story for a while. I got to tell you, I don't even trust completely that he had coronavirus. Maybe he did, and it was. I mean, I don't know. But there's so much BS at CNN, you just can't trust them. All right. Well, listen, it's 12:52, and I really didn't get through enough of these vids, but let's get through them now. You probably saw this insane footage from Venice Beach, California. If you've ever had the pleasure of being there, it's the great California beach experience. It's where Arnold Schwarzenegger did his bodybuilding. There's so much fun stuff for the public on the beach, workout places for the public on the beach, and then there's private gyms there, and there's skateboarding. It really is one of the best people watching places in the world, and it's got that California free spirit. It's been that way for 2 generations. And they just decided, here, take a look. I'll let the video speak for itself. Look what they did. So that's an aerial view by drone. I think it was the mayor who ordered that, probably the mayor. So that's a amazing skateboard facility. And can you find on my Twitter feed? Yeah, so why are you doing that? You're doing that because you love the power, but look at this. They wanted to stop the skateboarders, but here's skateboarders doing some chores, something you probably don't see all the time with skateboarders, clearing the sand out, and they did 2 things. Look at that guy sweeping. So part of it, they managed to clean up, and look at his skateboarding. Don't tell that guy you can't skateboard. There's no risk there. He's not coughing on anyone. He's having fun, getting some exercise. If he didn't do it here, he'd be doing it in your backyard or on some office stairs. And, can you find the one where they're dirt biking too? So just to slow down and unpack, find the dirt biking viz also. Just wrecking fun, just fun thieves. That is not the problem in LA. By the way, LA, unlike New York, has had a much lower incidence of the virus. And like I say, that's a healthy teenage kid, the likelihood of him getting the disease and getting sick from it is less likely than him falling and hitting his head on that concrete skateboard park. And look at that. So now that's a motorized sort of dirt bike. So they moved some of the sand around. Some of it they cleared off. Some of it they turned into just a fun motorbike, dirt bike park. Oh, you're going to put dirt in my skateboard park? Perfect. I got a dirt bike. And again, by the way, he's wearing a mask. Can we just stop over enjoying the lockdown? And you know what? There's a phrase in the Charter of Rights, rationally connected. What do I mean by that? We all have rights: freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of the press, privacy rights, etc. But our Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, and there's probably a similar test in the UK and the United States, says your rights may be infringed in certain cases. And in Canada, the test for that is called the Oakes test. That's the name of the court case that cemented it. And the government is, if there is a pressing and substantial reason, like, oh my God, we're all going to die from a pandemic, pressing and substantial, can't be trivial, then they can infringe your freedoms only if the infringement is the least possible infringement they can do. So if they've got 4 ways of fixing the problem, they got to choose the one that violates your freedom the least. It has to be rationally connected to the problem. So you can't say, well, I'm going to ban those 10 things that have no connection to the problem. It has to be proportionate. There's 3 or 4 parts of the Oakes test. Now that's a Canadian legal analysis. Applied in LA, obviously it would be different, but you don't even have to use it as law. You can use it as common sense. Is bulldozing a skateboarding park rationally connected to stopping the virus? Is it the least infringement you can? Is it proportionate? Does it really? No. And, I mean, by the way, I don't have a skateboarding teenager in my family, but I'm guessing if you do, if they can't skateboard here, they'll skateboard there. That's the thing about skateboards, is these skateboarding parks are a later innovation to try and get the skateboarders to stop skateboarding on sidewalks and alleys and, you know, public places. Hey guys, go over there so you're not causing. You think a skateboarder is not going to skateboard because you put sand in your public beach? We got some more super chats. Can we get ready? I don't know what the German police and the UK police are. We show so many police, but I'm going to call for those in a second. Let me read some more super chats, and then Mike, can you stand by with those new viz? Here we go. Shouting from the cheap seats, $2. I'm so proud of Nancy Pelosi. Marie from France. Oh, you're talking about the video where she's standing in front of her $24,000 double fridge and freezer, talking about her $13 a tub ice cream. Yeah, it felt a little out of touch. John Reed, 279. I encourage all to pay $2 a week to keep Rebel. Thanks very much. Yeah, you know, it's not that much dough, if I may say so. VM Parliament. Hi, Victoria. $5. Thanks for upgrading the video player. Your show used to lag pretty badly. Now it's great. Any guess when U.S. border will open? Well, I'm glad to hear you like our new video player. And we had about 6 months there where it was just terrible. We switched to one player. It was awful, so we switched to another. And I'm really glad to hear it works. When do I think the U.S. border will open? Last I saw, they're talking about a month from now. And it might come quicker. I mean, I think it's really up to Trump on that, more than Trudeau. Cat, my scrappin' mama, $1. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have some of those viz ready, Mike? Go ahead and load either the UK police or German police. I don't know what those are off the top of my head. So this is from China. Oh, this is from Germany.
Warum die Gewalt?
Now, if I recall, and Justin might correct me if I'm wrong, that was a protest in Germany against overreaching lockdowns. So these were German citizens on the street politely protesting against the lockdown. And can you find me the photo I tweeted the other day of the protest in Israel where they had social distancing at their protest? That was quite an image. So that's the police. I've never seen police in Germany that aggressive. Oh, look at this. Yeah, this is the image I'm referring to. That is a protest in Israel. And I believe it's against overreaching lockdowns in that country too. But you'll notice that the protesters put marks on the ground to keep everyone 6 feet. So that's a protest. It's sort of interesting because you can imagine that place would be full with 10 times as many people, but they all space themselves out. That was a protest against the government's overreach in Israel. I found that very interesting. And that German police, I tell you, I've never seen German police enforce a border like that. I mean, Angela Merkel invited in 2 million migrants from Turkey, Syria, Afghanistan, and Africa. Just, hey, come on in. So that's welcome. But because they didn't have border protections against the virus, German citizens who were protesting for their rights, they're thrown in the back of a paddy wagon. Show me the UK police one. There's so many bad behaviours from the UK. Let's take a look at this.
What for? It's Mark, you're harassing me. What for? I haven't done nothing wrong. Tell these, mate. What one?
No, you've done nothing wrong.
Your name, mate? Definition of arrest. Give your details.
You want me to go?
Give me the keys. Sit in your car. Shut up. If you want to fucking step to me and puff in your chest out and stuff like that, then fine. I'll lock you up. We'll do that, shall we? I'll make something up. Public order. Let's go up to a police officer. Should I do that?
Did you hear that lot? So he said, I'll lock you up. And the guy said, for what? And he said, I'll make something up. Play that again. And actually stop it too soon because he says, who's going to believe you?
Tell these, mate. What one?
No, you've done nothing wrong.
Your name, mate? Definition of arrest. Give your details. You want me to go? Give me the keys. Sit in your car. Shut up. If you want to fucking step to me and puff in your chest out and stuff like that, then fine. I'll lock you up. We'll do that, shall we? I'll make something up. Public order. Let's go up to a police officer. Should I do that? Who are they going to believe, me or you? Who are they going to believe, me or you?
Who are they going to believe, me or you? I'll make something up. I don't think he was wearing a mask there either, was he? There's something about British cops in the last 10 years. They've gone so bad. They've gone so unrecognizable. The British police used to be the envy of the world. You know the old joke, what's heaven? A British policeman, a French cook, an Italian lover, and a Swiss, mechanic or something like that. And what's hell? A German policeman, a British cook. It was sort of a funny joke. I'm not telling it very well. The British police were known as the gentlest, the most uncompromised, the most uncorrupt. They were the envy of the world. That's why they never had guns, because they had their billy club if necessary, but they had the moral authority. Imagine Sir Robert Peel, the founder of modern British policing, seeing that thug saying, I'll arrest you. For what? I'll make something up. Who are they going to believe, you or me? That cop should be fired, because how can you ever trust that cop again? It makes me mad. Oh, it's 1:04. Let me read some quick super chats. Brian Page, $10. Hey, Ezra, thoughts on this possibly being part of a forced vaccines on people? Seems to be one of the biggest theory out there now, hoping we can end this madness by mid-May. Absolutely, that's the big push. Bill Gates, Justin Trudeau himself, saying, oh, we can't go back to normal till everyone's vaccinated. I'm sorry, I don't feel the need to take a hastily made, politicized vaccine because a bunch of globalist liberal politicians want me to, when in the end the death toll, thank God, in Canada was less than that of a regular flu. No thanks. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, by the way. Absolutely not. But I don't need, there's been so much bad science from the public health authorities here that I think they can step back now. I think we've heard enough from them. Observer Dude, 5 pounds. A Muslim Labour MP is trying to get Tommy banned from TikTok. I'm not surprised. And by the way, it's MPs from every party. Can we go to Tommy's TikTok page, see if he's got anything new there? It's sort of funny. TikTok. I deleted TikTok from my phone. I won't tell you. About 3 or 4 things happened to my online systems that I thought, how did that happen? I've never seen that before. It sort of spooked me. There we go. So here's Tommy's TikTok page. He's got 23,000 followers. Let's look at the top right.
You've all got one of those mates who just chat shit. So we're driving in the car, and he says, "Oh, there's some wicked bike jumps in that woods. I used to go over there as a kid."
It just sounds like banter. But as you can see, Tommy's getting into the TikToks. He's doing them every day, and he has yet to be shut down. And as he says right on his page, he's been deplatformed by every Silicon Valley tech company. Let's give the Chinese a try. There's so much irony there. China is an evil authoritarian dictatorship, the chief victims of whom, of course, the Chinese people itself. But isn't it ironic that a Western dissident, political prisoner like Tommy Robinson, has more expressive freedom on a Chinese app, and actually in Russia, where he was invited to go on tour a few months ago and actually appeared on TV in a fairly good exchange. Cindy Mix7, $20. Thanks, Ezra. My mom came here after the World War II was over. She served the London Blitz. She raised me British more than Canadian. Keep up the great work. Love, Tommy. Well, thanks very much, Cindy. I, as you know, would occasionally go over to the UK to cover Tommy's trials. Those were all put on ice because of the virus, but I imagine that's going to be freed up a bit. It's 1:07, but I'm going to run for another 10 minutes. We got another super chat. Ray, £5. Thanks, Ezra and Rebel. Thank you very much, Ray. I want to tell you the big focus of our company for the next month. I have a surprise coming, personally, that I hope you'll like. But I want to tell you what our company's doing. Can you go fightthefines.com? Fightthefines.com is a compilation page we've set up to fight against police overreach. And scroll down a bit slowly. So ordinary Canadians, help us out, civil liberties. I'll come back to that video in a second. Have you been fined during the pandemic for no good reason? Please click here to contact us in confidence. Can you click there and just show people what? So scroll down a little bit. You see on the right-hand side there, tell us your story, first name, last name, email, mobile phone. So let me tell you what happens when you fill this out. It's at fightthefines.com. And go back to the main page there for a second, because there's 2 more things I want to point out. Because we give you a lawyer for free. You know Sam Goldstein, that senior bencher of the Lost Side of Ontario we had on the other day talking about that? So, yeah, I want to point out 2 more things. I'm going to get to that video in a second. Scroll up a little bit. There's a video there I'm going to show on the top left. If you just scroll back. And on the right, you see there's a donation page. So how are we paying for these lawyers? We have now got 3 lawyers. Sam Goldstein's the boss of this. We're starting a little law firm is really what we're doing. We have 7 cases in New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, and Alberta. We haven't even had this website up a week. We got 7 cases. Sam's going to take the cases in Ontario. We've just secured a lawyer in Quebec to handle the cases there. The law is a bit different out there. We got great lawyers out west. We got a crazy case in New Brunswick. So I expect to have many, many cases in Canada, like what we just showed you in UK, Germany. Now, can you play, and I know it's 1:09, but can you play a little bit of Kian's video, play the opening part, and then let's skip over Kian, because I want to show the police interaction. In fact, can you do that, Mike? Or Justin, can you play the first 30 seconds of Kian's vid and then skip over the commentary? I just want to show people what happened to this guy in Calgary named Arthur Pavlovsky.
We are providing necessities of life to those that you and your bosses refuse to provide.
You guys do respectful social distance. Who's allowed to
stand back from me a little bit. I need 8 feet.
Whoa.
I need 8 feet. Stand back. Okay?
Or what?
Stand
You're
back.
gonna f***ing threaten me and abuse me?
Hey, guys.
Do not
6
do that.
feet.
Tell him not to touch me.
6 feet away for everybody.
Back up now.
That's for everybody.
Feeding the homeless when he was given a ticket. You cannot make this up. Artur Pilarski received a ticket of over $1,000 for feeding the homeless. Again, you cannot make this up.
This is not event. This is not your picnic in a neighborhood for the fun of it. We are providing necessities of life to those that you and your bosses refuse to provide. You got all kinds of events happening right now, and yet the Calgary's finest are not bothering them. This is the hypocrisy of this city. This is the hypocrisy of our wonderful, fearless leaders. Where is Naheed Nenshi, the mayor of this city?
Can you guys do respectful social distance?
He's allowed to
Stand back from me a little bit.
Distancing.
I need 8 feet.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
I need 8 feet. Stand back. Okay?
Or what?
Stand
You're gonna
back.
fucking threaten me and abuse me?
Hey, guys.
Do not do
6
that.
feet.
Tell him not
6
to
feet
touch
away.
me.
6 feet away for
Back
everybody.
up now.
That's for everybody.
The police surrounded Artur while he was in downtown Calgary giving food to people in need. They gave him this ticket, and
All right, you get the point. Actually, do you want to? And I just I won't invite you to watch the whole video now because it's 1:11. But go to fightthefines.com. You can see the whole video. Let me tell you. First of all, that's outrageous, isn't it? And again, the cops aren't wearing masks. And that one cop who kept moving towards someone said, "Stay 8 feet away from me," and then he moved forward. "Stay 8 feet away from me," and he moved forward. What an abusive cop. I'm sorry. I mean, I tell you, I swear to you, I grew up pro-cop. Our house was, follow the law, obey the law, police are your friend. If you're in trouble, ask the policeman. Police are right almost all the time. Like, there was just no gray area there. But what do you think of that cop there? What do you think of the cop in the UK who said, "I'll make something up"? Who's going to believe you? Oh, it's out of control. So, just in case you haven't connected the dots, here's what we're doing. We have that website, fightthefines.com. We invite people to fill out the form on it. The form comes in. Our boss lawyer, Sam Goldstein, very, very senior lawyer, checks them out, makes sure it's for real. Can you show us the ticket, please? And then we assign the case to a lawyer, either Sam himself. Can you put B-roll up of Sarah Miller from Keen's video? In Calgary, we have a young civil liberties lawyer named Sarah Miller, who's representing Artur. We have a law firm in Edmonton. We have a law firm in Vancouver. So there's Sarah. That's the lawyer in Calgary, who's representing Artur. We have 7 cases. We vet them. We give them legal advice. We take the case. Then we have a journalist do a story on it. In fact, I don't know if it's being published, but any minute now, David Menzies is going to have our second case. It's a case from Cornwall, Ontario. Incredibly, there's another case out of Calgary, very similar to the first, police going after. It was a very interesting point Artur made. He had a gathering, he absolutely did. But it was not a picnic or a celebration or a social gathering. He was feeding the homeless. That is morally, operationally, legally different than, "Hey, I'm having a house party, come on over, let's have some beers." In fact, I encourage you to watch that video because these people that Artur was helping, I know Artur a bit, are so marginalized. They're not just homeless, and they're not just drug users, mentally ill people, but some of them have fallen so low that they're not even allowed into the homeless shelters in Calgary. Maybe they're badly behaved. Maybe they do drugs. Maybe they get into fights. I don't know what the reason is, but they are, as Morrissey would say, nobody's nothing. They're nobody's nothing. Don't worry about him. They're nobody's nothing. Don't pay attention. They're nobody's nothing. Well, Artur Pawlowski, I don't care what you think about him, he goes out there and finds the nobody's nothings, and he brings them hot food. You saw how cold it was there in Calgary? And the cops go after him? The cops go after him with a $1,200 ticket? The cops push his people around? The cops who themselves don't have masks? $1,200 ticket. And as he said, how come the mayor's not feeding these people? Is it not an essential service to feed the hungry? Oh my God. And we have another case that just came in over the weekend, very similar to that. Sarah's going to take that. We've got a case from New Brunswick that will knock your socks off. It is insane. It's like if you were a Hollywood movie studio and someone came in with the story out of New Brunswick, you'd say, no one's going to believe that. It's too on the nose. You know, you got to make it more subtle. This case from New Brunswick is so, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. But the guy actually had the cool, collected thought to record the interaction. Otherwise, I don't think I would have believed it. Would you have believed it if I said police are handing out $1,200 tickets to people feeding the homeless? All right, it's 1:16. I'm going to whip through some super chats, and then I got to go. Cindy McSeven, $5. Typo. Mom survived the London Blitz in her childhood. Well, I'm glad she survived it. Brian Page, $5. Thanks for your answer. I've been loving the content lately. Donated through your website too. Well, thank you very much. Let me just check to make sure I haven't missed any. Do you think I've got them all? Cindy McSeven, $20. We must stay strong, Canada and fellow rebels. This is our country they're trying to take. Shocking the cops. Brian Page, $5. I think I got them all. Do I have them all? There's one more $5 one. Breathing Sunshine. Thank you for going after tyrant cops, Ezra. However, you need to go after the badges and get them jail time, not just the fines. I think that the government has to calm down. Police have to calm down. Public health officials need to calm down. I agree that ordinary citizens should still take responsible steps. You know, go to a grocery store, wear a mask, if you can find one. But this kind of insanity, like that China drone cop in New Jersey, what a madman. It's been shocking to me to see how quickly a free people, Canada and even Americans, are willing to give up their freedom because they're afraid of the virus. I get it. I mean, everyone's afraid. But you don't have to throw everything out, an entire civilization of freedom out. My friends, I want to tell you one last thing in closing. Like I said, go back to fightthefines.com, fightthefines.com. I'm very proud of this initiative. Our first 2 cases are up. In fact, if you can click on the title, open it of the video, you'll see that we're starting to number them. Yeah, click on the title there and look at the title there. You'll see pastor fined for holding, okay, so this is our second story. Pastor fined for holding Passover dinner at home. Fight the Fines case number 2. So it looks like this was published just minutes ago because the view count is so low. So this is police going to someone's house on Passover, a Christian man who was having Passover. There's David on the scene there. So we're numbering our cases. Case number 1 is Kian Bexty reporting on the Calgary homeless feeder, Arthur. Case number 2 is David Menzies reporting, yeah, you see it's, oh, we got to add, yeah, case number 1. Case number 1 is there. And how many views does that have? I can't quite see with the angle here. 60,000 views. I'm very pleased that it does. So I've shown you video number 1. I've given you a glimpse of video number 2. I tell you that since we launched fightthefines.com, we have had 7 bona fide cases come by, including 2 plus 2 that are not legit for whatever reasons. Good people that just, we couldn't help them, or one guy foolishly paid the fine. You can't pay the fine and then fight it, buddy. You got to choose one path. So we've got 7 cases already. And I know it's 1:20, but I'm going to stick around for one more moment because and I should do a video on this point. There's 2 ways to fight a ticket, right? Like you get a traffic ticket. You can go and find one of these traffic busters, usually an ex-cop who knows a few things, and pay him $500 and he'll go for you and he'll talk to the guy and he'll get it, you know, just make it go away, cut the price in half, just handle it. That's one approach. That's not the approach we're taking here. That's, oh, I got this $300 ticket. Can you get it down to $100 and get some demerits down? That's the make it go away approach. We're taking a different approach. We're taking the approach called push back. Have a teachable moment for civil liberties. Remind police that they're governed by the Charter of Rights. Remind politicians and public health busybodies that the law still applies, we're still free people. And teach the public to push back. You don't have to let someone onto your property, into your house, just because they say. Where's your warrant? And so we are going to fight these 7 cases, and if we've had 7 cases in just a few days, you can imagine we're going to have dozens before we're done. We're going to fight them tooth and nail. So that's going to be a lot more expensive than just, I'll make this go away for $500. We're going to get disclosure from the police. We're going to make charter challenges where appropriate. I estimate that the cost of defending each of these will be approximately $5,000. Now you're saying that's crazy. Why don't you just pay the $1,200 fine? No, that's not the point. That's the $500 approach. Just get me out of this approach. That's not what we're doing here. That's not our motivation. Our motivation is to defend our civil liberties, push back on the law itself, and to push back on the out-of-control police themselves. That's our motivation. And so I have to tell you that I have greenlit 7 cases at $5,000 each, and that's $35,000. And it would not shock me if by the time we're done, we have 50 cases at $5,000 each. That's $250,000. Now that sounds insanely large. I can tell you that's a sliver of the budget of groups like the Canadian Civil Liberties Association or other groups that are supposed to be doing this, but they're not. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I hope you will help me. So please go to fightthefines.com if you believe in fighting these cases, because I don't see other people doing it. I think it falls to us. I think it falls to us, as so many things do. All right, well, I went 22 minutes long, my friends. Thank you. Keep watching. We're going to have, unfortunately, we're going to have a new case almost every day on fightthefines.com. That's where the battlefront is now. All right. Until 8 o'clock tonight, when I do my paywalled show, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.